talking about the video that's circulating about the Minister of National Security. Alhaji Ibad Ibrahim, Executive Director, Ibad Security Consult and an Election Peace Ambassador, is my guest. Thank you very much, sir.
And Koko, you're most welcome, and I'm happy to be here.
Very well. Very first time meeting you.
First time meeting, but I'm sure we've crossed paths some way, somehow.
Very well. It's good to.
You are doing great, and I wish you the very best in your anchorage, so to speak.
Thank you very much, and all the best in your endeavors as well. Now, let's talk about whether or not we are ready. Again, I'm asking this question because we have a lot to do in terms of building a new register and also allowing peace to prevail. You are a peace ambassador. Are we ready for elections 2020?
I remember before the 2016 election, courtesy the U.S. State Department, I met the secretary in charge of youth affairs in D.C., and we were having a discussion about the potential of instability erupting as a result of the election in 2016.
Right.
And mind you, as peace ambassador for the election, I knew I had done a lot of work on the ground to be so sure that the election was going to be peaceful. I told him that the international community should not entertain any fears. Sometimes Ghanaians become a bit alarmist, and people who are seen to have a knack for analyzing security issues would want to give you an alarmist, perspective on some of these issues. I'm optimistic today, the way I was in January 2016, that this election is going to be very peaceful. And matters of the integrity and sanctity of the voters' register are quite important. But I believe that if the Electoral Commission communicates well with opposition parties and the larger Ghanaian citizenry, this shouldn't be a matter we should be rolling our heads over. But
even before we get there,
the posture of the Electoral Commission,
right,
Koko, has not been helpful.
Right. So we'll get there. We'll get there. So let's start off with your alarmist perspective, the fact that you feel that sometimes we could blow those trumpets. Let's walk back to Ayawaso West Wuogon elections and whatever matters that arose from there. Again, somebody could point at that and say, that is how, people are ready to take power and they could do anything. And so it's not about sounding those trumpets at all.
Koko, my pacifist view of security matters in this country has stood the test of time. You remember when the Gitmoto were brought into the country?
Right.
I swam against the tide. Maybe I was the only person who felt they didn't pose any security threats. And I was seen as an enigmatic figure at that time. As we speak today, the very same Gitmoto people were talking about are with us in Ghana.
Oh, they are still
here.
It's surprising you will not hear anything from them.
When I say this election is going to be peaceful, please trust me. Many people read from open source. So maybe I wouldn't say I'm not part of Ghana's security architecture. I don't have a formal role in that regard. But of course, there is an interface with Intel and other things. So maybe I won't say I have access to classified information. Far from it.
Do you?
I don't. Okay, far from it, perhaps. But I believe that when you look at the facts on the ground, only a few days ago, there was a huge attack against the army in Niger, killing close to 90 people. Ghana has been completely free from terrorist attacks. We've been free from all the major insecurity issues within the sub-region. So let's be optimistic and grateful to God for keeping this country safe.
Absolutely.
And let's not be alarmist.
Yes, but then again, we need to prepare adequately, both in our minds and in whatever resources that we have in terms
of preparation. We do retraining for our security personnel. So we know the sacrifices are men and women in uniform who exude so much gallantry and courage, working throughout the dead of the night to keep us safe. I certainly can't give you specific examples, but sometimes I'm out there way after midnight, looking at what our police officers are doing at checkpoints between cities. So we know that people are doing their best to keep Ghana safe. And in terms of our resourcefulness and how prepared we are as a country, certainly with this election, Ghana is fully prepared.
Do you still think that it's an alarmist point of view when people allude to the fact that people are training thugs to, you know, cause mayhem, I mean, during the elections.
No doubt about it. Before 16, the NPP was accused of training Delta Forces, Invincible Forces, and other groups we now know too well. And today there are accusations that something is happening in Suchari and maybe in Pram Pram, an accusation against the NDC. But I always say, if we have the will, I won't say political will, because citizens also have a responsibility. National security policy is now public policy. It is not left to the preserve of those in the corridors of power. How psyched up are we as a people to appreciate what our security personnel and top, you know, services chiefs are doing to keep us safe? I keep saying invincible forces, how many are they? All the vigilante groups. A well-placed source told me that apart from the half a dozen groups we know, they can count close to 20. So in the books of our intelligence, you know, agencies, there are about 20 such groups. But Koku, these are people who have pumped a little iron. We call them macho men. They number maybe 20 here, 30 there, 50 there. And we have a police force of more than 33,000.
Again, coming back to that, where you have what might be obvious that, you see, because these heads of these institutions, especially security forces, are appointed by the president. Again, people could allude to the fact that they do the bidding, and so that's why sometimes when issues come up, they are a bit hesitant to, you know, attack, or if you like,
whether the Hawks, Invincible Forces.
We saw what happened in the courts.
Yes, the Hawks, the Invincible Forces. I think the potency of these groups is a bit bloated.
You sure?
Yeah, it is bloated.
Walking into the court, freeing people,
it doesn't matter.
That's not bloated.
One district police command would be able to handle an issue like that. So let's not create a Frankenstein, creating an aura of invincibility around a group of thugs that can be dealt with by the police if we have the will to do so. The army doesn't even have to come in. And mind you, many people have an interface with police officers working for MTTD, for example. And the person's understanding of security is that the police officer takes 10 Ghana cedis from me on the road. They are elitist police units, like the Formed Police Unit, FPU, Counterterrorism Unit, Police Intel, that even exude more robustness than soldiers, because we respect the army more than we do the police. So I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever, Koko, that the vigilantism, of course, raises some concerns for us as a country in terms of our international legitimacy and how the international community views us. But it's an issue we can tackle by snapping our fingers if we really want to tackle it.
Again, for some of the people who might say, we don't trust the security agencies, that's a bit dangerous. But then again, I want us to move from over-reliance on whether or not they can clamp down on these actions as and when they pop up. And let's work on the minds of Ghanaians. How ready must we, as a citizen, and can I clamp down on these activities when I see them?
No, citizen arrest is something we can prod people into embracing. Mob action is bad. So when you arrest a criminal or a suspect, you hand him over to the police. But if there is rabble-rousing somewhere, and the police would have to come in. And on countless occasions, for example, there was an incident at one of the public state institutions, and I was so marveled at the, you know, panache and urgency with which there was a response from our security agencies. So because what we do, or what Ghana does in terms of our security needs, may not necessarily be out in the open for people to see. But if there is any police force or any army or other intel, you know, agencies like the BNI, military intel, and then research department, then I would say Ghana's security is watertight.
I see.
Where there is the will, we'll be able to tackle some of these challenges. So I wouldn't want citizens to imperil their lives. If a group of vigilantes are on a destruction spree, don't hurt yourself. Do the right calls to our security agencies, and they are going to respond in real time.
Let's talk about the posturing of the Electoral Commission or commissioners. No, the commission. Anyways, first of all, the responses to all of these issues has not been helpful. You started by saying that. One, there are even words that are popping up about her talking about that in election 2016, the fact that EC has the right to do all of this but must listen to the voice of the people. Again, you see people have also talked about they using their website or their pages to propagate things. I mean, when you share the post of individuals that are purported to be linked to political parties, I mean, it raises some eyebrows. Let's talk about the posturing. How has it not been helpful?
Sorry to say this, Koko. You may call me a utility player.
Right.
Because I try to engage all political parties. Right. And people find me on the side of the state all the time because I think when you voted for a political party, you can put aside all the partisan bickering. Then we rally around the political party, which is now our government.
Right.
And I don't like it when you say NDC government, MPP government. You only have Ghana's government at every point in time. So I'm seen to have a soft spot for the incumbent party all the time because I know that is our government. But I'm sorry to say I don't see enough sincerity on the part of both the MPP and the NDC on matters of the integrity of the electoral process.
Tell me.
Where you have appointed the electoral commissioner, you think everything is okay. Where someone else has appointed the electoral commissioner, you find everything wrong with that. And we are going back to, this is deja vu. We saw the activities of Let My Vote Count Alliance against the Electoral Commission of old. And now so many groups, an inter-party resistance force that carried out a demonstration in Tamale over the past weekend. So there is no sincerity. These are political actors in this country are my friends, but the mutual sabotage and subterfuge, these state institutions can act and act efficiently if they are given the free will to act. So I don't fault the EC as a body, but I think where there is no consensus building, there are better ways to communicate to the country rather than taking an intransigent position.
And so let's talk about that position now. Again, there's a call for a new register, and opposition parties and other Ghanaians have said in terms of time, when you look at time, how much time do we have, and the cost as well, are these not very genuine concerns that must be raised by people?
You can look at the pros and cons of the arguments that I've put forward. Of course, the cost on the taxpayer. Madame Jade Mensah, a very respected, luminary in terms of her understanding of governance and all that. Certainly, we respect her, of course. We respect all her deputies she works with. But the whopping amount of money that will be used to collate a new role is not coming from her personal account.
True.
It's your money and mine, the taxes we pay. So we can have a say as to whether this is a futile exercise or is going to help our cause as a people. When you do the cost-benefit analysis, I would say that we may not necessarily need a new register. Because the taxpayer is in a strain. And the taxpayer is overburdened. There's an NIA process that is ongoing, and I'm told the cost of it was estimated to be 1.2 billion. Then it hasn't ended. Only 3.7 million cards have been issued so far. We have the population and housing census happening this year.
Yeah, this year.
There's an election, and you want to collect a new voter register. Isn't that too much on the taxpayer? And the argument that the biometric machines have gone stale or obsolete, that is not a strong argument. Technology is not like you have a piece of furniture, when it is old, you take it out and bring a new set. You can always update the software. So I think even if the EC wants to go on this tangent, Parliament has given its approval. And I'm repeating, you can't fault the Electoral Commission as an institution, but how it communicates decisions it wants to take is very important.
Then again, the issue of time. So we've dealt with the cost. We have every concern to want to shout because it's our money. Let's talk about time. Again, just as you said, census is coming up, the NIA is ongoing, and then we have to prepare for election.
Our decision makers sometimes find themselves in a catch-22 situation. And I keep repeating this. Elections have consequences, and those consequences mean somebody being impoverished and another person being enriched over time. And so some people certainly can't come to terms with going back into opposition, and some can't come to terms with continuing to be in opposition. So whatever it will take to either remain in power or come to power, people will leave no stone unturned in getting that. So it is up to us, and I always talk about our national conscience as a people. You may belong to a political party, but whatever step we take, will it help us and help many more generations, our posterity to come?
Right.
And so if every political party comes, appoints its own electoral commissioner, and collates its own roster, then we'll have too many rosters.
I know.
The UK carried out an election.
Okay.
I say if you copycat and mimic what others are doing in terms of democracy, copy well. You saw the election in the UK. Very quiet, no argument whatsoever.
It started all before I had blinked. I mean, the election was done.
It was over. And because the process has integrity, they don't close the polls at 5. They close the polls at 10 p.m.
Whoa.
And people vote and go to work. So
That
if you
cannot
want to
happen.
be a democratic country,
Right.
be an all through and through democratic party.
Right.
And such arguments. And I'm sorry this is starting too early in the year.
Absolutely.
This is going to continue. It's going to affect productivity. It's going to affect the general well-being and national cohesion we have as a country. Why split the country in half? Because you want to remain in power or you want to come to power. And they continue to drive a wedge between us as a people with these arguments. Some of these arguments are not strong enough.
I see.
And I believe if we can maintain the same register that brought this party into power, and IPAC should be used some more, the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. When things spill over onto the streets, it means consensus wasn't built at IPAC.
That's true.
And
That's
I agree
very
with you entirely, Koko, that there is no goodwill, there is no good faith between these two political parties. So we are working towards that.
Absolutely. Now let's talk more about. Or finally draw curtains on that. Let's talk about pundits, analysts, religious bodies, the council, Peace Council. Some of them have been very quiet. And then, of course, you, the security analyst. The fact that people are skewed and belong to, and again, we've divided it. These people who, we listen to have been divided, cut into half, belonging to these two major political parties. That's even more dangerous and poses major threats.
In this country, people see things in a binary way. There are no gray areas in the Republic of Ghana when it comes to the national discourse space. On Gitmotu, I was called the NDC because I was seen to be supporting the position, the foreign policy decision that had been taken by former President John Dramani Mahama. On other issues, I've been seen supporting Nanado, the president, and people now call me NPP. And so these bodies you are talking about are vocal during the time of certain regimes, and they go dead quiet.
Why?
During the time of other regimes. Of course, I would want the National Peace Council to be more vocal than it is currently. And also the Christian Council and other groups, they can be more vocal on issues that are important to the citizens of Ghana.
Absolutely. And so, well, that is, I'm sharing company with Alhaji Ibad Ibrahim, Executive Director, Ibad, a security consult and an election peace ambassador. Let's use our 5 minutes to talk about the video that was circulating. There's a lady, we couldn't see the face, but the face of our Minister of National Security. Again, people have said that a man of such caliber entrusted with our national security could not be that conscious and go into the public domain. Are we threatened by these actions, especially no matter how you see it as his private life?
At least on one occasion, I witnessed a briefing, a security briefing that was given former Vice President, His Excellency Mr. Arthur. I was in the Jubilee House.
I see.
When he was briefed. You see, in times past, you would want technology to be far removed from people that have state secrets up their sleeves.
True.
But today, Donald Trump, who sits on top of the biggest secrets, he has the codes to America's atomic arsenal.
True.
He tweets. You can't prevent somebody because they are a public official from using a smartphone. Obama sought clearance from national security in the United States to use his BlackBerry when he was in power. People are on social media. But what WhatsApp assures us is that communications via their medium are encrypted end to end.
Right.
I'm not here to defend the National Security Minister.
True.
As I indicated, there is an interface in terms of things that are of mutual benefit to us as a consult and as the state. And by all means, we would have met some way, somehow, whether personally or otherwise. But I'm not out here, I don't do PR for him. I'm not out here to defend him. But everybody is using a phone.
True. But so how you use it?
No, you can look at this issue from the professional point of view and also from the moral point of view. We're a religious country. We know it's bad to go behind your wife.
No, it's not even a question.
No. But from the professional point of view,
absolutely,
I think the National Security Minister, Honorable Kandapa, could have exercised more wise judgment. But I have attended international conferences before. When you break from the sitting or the session, you have a lot of idle time alone in